They called him the Butcher of Plainfield, but Ed Gein wasn't the kind of killer who stalked city streets or chased victims through the night. He was quiet, polite, a man who smiled at his neighbors and kept to himself. Behind that calm smile, though, something was growing, something festering in the silence of a lonely farmhouse in rural Wisconsin. And when the truth finally came out, it would change the world's definition of horror forever. Welcome to Unwell Tales. Tonight, we're stepping inside the mind of one of history's most twisted souls, Ed Gein. Edward Theodore Gein was born in 1906 in La Crosse, Wisconsin. From the beginning, his life was designed for isolation. His father, George, was a bitter alcoholic who drifted from job to job, a failed carpenter, an unsuccessful tanner, a man crushed by his own inadequacy. He drank to forget, but Augusta, Ed's mother, made sure no one in that house ever forgot sin. Augusta Gein was a storm of fire and scripture. She believed the world was wicked, especially women. In her eyes, women were temptresses, harlots, and agents of Satan. She told her two sons, Ed and Henry, that they were to avoid women entirely. Only she was pure. Only she was good. When the boys were small, she would read the Bible aloud for hours each night. Not the stories of kindness or redemption, but the brutal passages, death, punishment, damnation. She filled their heads with fear and shame until it was all they knew. Every day after school, Ed wasn't allowed to play with other children. He came straight home to the farmhouse, to chores, sermons, and silence. No friends, no laughter, no world beyond his mother's voice. By his teenage years, Ed had developed an unhealthy dependence on Augusta. He worshipped her. He listened to her every word, even when she humiliated him, calling him weak, simple, and sinful. When his father drank himself to death, Ed barely reacted. All that mattered was Augusta, his teacher, his God, his jailer. Then in 1944, Ed's brother Henry started to rebel. Henry didn't believe Augusta's teachings anymore. He called her controlling, delusional, a woman who poisoned their minds. One evening, a brush fire broke out near the property. When it was extinguished, Henry was found dead, face down in a marsh, his head oddly bruised. Authorities called it accidental, but many locals whispered that Ed had led police straight to the body, as if he already knew exactly where it was. After that day, Ed never mentioned Henry again. Now his mother was truly all he had. When Augusta died of a stroke in 1945, Ed's world fell apart. He was 39 years old, emotionally stunted, and completely alone. He boarded up her room, sealing it off like a shrine, and lived in the rest of the decaying house surrounded by garbage, rot, and silence. But in his mind, she never really left. He began hearing her voice, whispering in his sleep, calling his name through the walls. And slowly he decided she could be brought back. Ed became fascinated by death. He started reading pulp magazines and medical journals about anatomy, cannibalism, and Nazi experiments. He spent long hours studying obituaries, searching for women who reminded him of Augusta, middle-aged, heavy-set, devout. At night, he drove to cemeteries under the light of the moon. He dug up freshly buried bodies and brought them home. Sometimes he took entire corpses, other times he just took parts. In his mind, he wasn't doing something wrong. He was visiting old friends. He was trying to rebuild his mother, piece by piece. When police later raided his house, they described it as a museum of nightmares. They found skulls used as bowls, a chair upholstered with human skin, a belt made of nipples, masks made from faces, and in his bedroom closet, a woman's suit made entirely from human flesh. He would put it on and walk around the house, pretending to be his mother. He told investigators he wanted to be her. He wanted to feel what it was like to be a woman. He was, in his own words, trying to bring her back. Psychiatrists later said Ed Gein was a textbook case of psychosis fueled by grief and delusion. He didn't kill out of rage or desire. He killed to quiet the voice of loneliness. To him, the line between love and death was gone. He spoke about his crimes calmly, without shame. He admitted to robbing graves, wearing the faces of the dead, and dismembering women he thought resembled Augusta. But to him, it wasn't murder. It was worship. He wanted to become her, to merge with her completely, to undo the one thing he couldn't live with, her absence. For years, Ed lived unnoticed. Plainfield was a small town, and people just thought he was strange, odd but harmless. He babysat for neighbors. He fixed small engines. He even helped out at the local sheriff's office. He was friendly, soft-spoken, and awkward. The kind of man no one thought capable of evil. And maybe that's what made it so easy for him to hide. But everything changed on November 16, 1957. That morning, Bernice Warden, owner of the local hardware store, vanished. The cash register was gone, and her last receipt showed a sale made to Ed Gein. Sheriff's deputies went to question him at his farmhouse. When they stepped inside, they found a nightmare they would never forget. The house reeked of decay. Every surface was covered in filth, clutter, and bones. In one room, human skulls sat on the bedposts. In another, faces hung on the wall like hunting trophies. In the shed, they found Bernice Warden's body, decapitated, hanging upside down, gutted like an animal. Her head was found inside the house in a paper bag. It was the day Plainfield stopped being quiet forever. When confronted, Ed didn't run. He didn't deny it. He simply said, "I guess you're here for what I done." He confessed to killing two women, Bernice Warden and tavern owner Mary Hogan, who had disappeared 3 years earlier. But he also admitted to robbing graves, dozens of them, and taking souvenirs home. When asked why, his answer was chillingly simple. "I wanted to make a woman's suit so I could become my mother." Psychologists concluded that Ed suffered from schizophrenia, necrophilia, and severe sexual confusion. He showed almost no emotion, no anger, no guilt. He seemed lost in another world, one where death and love had become the same thing. To him, his crimes were acts of devotion, a grotesque expression of grief so powerful it broke reality. He was declared legally insane and sent to Central State Hospital, where he remained for the rest of his life. By all accounts, he was a model patient, quiet, polite, helpful. He spent his days reading, painting, and doing odd jobs for the staff. He died in 1984, peacefully, at the age of 77. But Ed's story didn't end there. His crimes inspired some of the most iconic horror characters ever created. Norman Bates from Psycho, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. Each of them borrowed pieces of his madness, the obsession with skin, the mother fixation, the eerie politeness. Through them, Ed Gein's legacy lives on in every corner of modern horror. When you look deep into Ed Gein's mind, you find something far more terrifying than murder. You find dependency, a son so completely enslaved by his mother's control that he never became a person of his own. You find grief so consuming, it turned into delusion. You find love so twisted, it gave birth to monsters. Ed Gein was not a beast from the shadows. He was a man who never learned to live without his mother. And in trying to bring her back, he became something inhuman. That's what makes him so haunting, because his crimes weren't born out of rage. They were born out of longing. And longing in the wrong mind can be more dangerous than hate. If you made it this far, thank you for walking with me through this darkness. If this story disturbed you, good. It should. Because Ed Gein's story isn't just about murder. It's about the danger of isolation, the fragility of the human mind, and the horror that can grow in silence. If you want more stories like this, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Unwell Tales. There are many more horrors waiting for you in the dark. Some real, some imagined, but all of them unforgettable. Because sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones lurking in the woods. They're the ones who can't let go of the dead.